Welcome to the Sea Files, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It is Tuesday, 2 days before Thanksgiving, and 2 days before those rascally pilgrims invaded this land and forced the native tribes to join them in a feast and celebration and give thanks to God for his blessings. Hmm. Hmm. Somehow that just didn't turn out the way a woke person would say it. I guess I'm not any good at being woke. So, anyway, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. You know what that means? The Sea Files are on. Well, let's get started. The sky is falling. All the CO2 going in the air. Climate change. Ah! Wait, let's see what this gentleman has to say about all of that.
These policies, they're not just destroying lives, they're rooted in lies, all of them. Our next guest was once a climate alarmist, but now says the entire movement is, quote, a scam. Tom Harris is the executive director of the International Climate Science Coalition. He joins me now. Tom, good to see you tonight. Now, you actually say the only way to get rid of this is to go after the science of climate change. Explain.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people will say, well, Canada, for example, puts out so little greenhouse gas emissions that we shouldn't actually try to reduce it because China is double the United States. Well, the trouble is people argue that, well, yes, but we have to set an example to the world and we have to be good citizens and all that sort of thing. So they're using these arguments quite often that China's doubled the emissions of the U.S., et cetera. But the real underlying thing is that there is no climate crisis. I was originally an aerospace engineer, and I would give speeches and I wrote articles. I wrote one in the Ottawa Citizen about comparative planetology, how studying the planets helps us understand the Earth better. And I used the example of the runaway greenhouse effect on Venus. I said, this could happen on the Earth if we don't reduce carbon dioxide. Well, a local professor at Carleton University, professor of geology, he liked my article so much he used it in his course on climate change. But he said to the students, but that part about Venus is wrong. What happened on Venus cannot physically happen on the Earth, and he explained why. Now, I thought, who is this climate change denier? Well, he invited me into his lab, and he showed me the geologic history that he and others are finding, and they found no consistent correlation between carbon dioxide and Earth's temperature. At times, CO2 was 1,300% of today, and we were stuck in very cold conditions. So it was all over the board. So I started wondering, well, maybe he's right. He exposed me to a lot of people who actually showed me that there are thousands of scientists. And here's a book actually that illustrates that. It's called Climate Change Reconsidered. And this is on climatechangereconsidered.org. There are thousands of references here which talk about the fact that there is no foundation to the climate scare. It's all based on models that don't work.
I think I'm going to have to add a new book to my collection, Climate Change Reconsidered. We're doing that one. So, yeah, folks, this is the trend that we're going to see. It's a good trend. So, yeah, we're going to see this trend that what was once was is now going to flip around and go the other direction. You ever pull a U-turn? We're pulling a U-turn. I'll show you what I mean as we go through this. Now, this is Donald J. Trump, ladies and gentlemen, talking about Jack Smith.
It's always been very clear that the documents case, it's a hoax, is nothing but an election interference scam concocted by crooked Joe Biden and deranged Jack Smith and their hacks and thugs. It's totally illegal what they've done. And now deranged Jack has admitted in a filing in front of Judge Cannon, a highly respected judge, strong and smart, to what I've been saying happened since the illegal raid on my home, Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida. An illegal raid it was, that he and his team committed blatant evidence tampering by mishandling the very boxes they used as a pretext to bring this fake case and to hurt the president so that crooked Joe Biden could get another 4 years, which would destroy our country. This deeply illegal action by the politicized persecutors mandate that this whole witch hunt be dropped immediately. They are crooked, they are corrupt, they are bad people. And by the way, they let Biden out of his boxes examination, documents, whatever you want to call it. They let him out with no problem. He can go. He had 10 times the boxes. He had a lot of classified information. They let him out, but they continue to go after Donald Trump. But I think it's going to end very well. So we want to put a stop to the boxes, hoaxes. We're going to make America great again. And 2024 is going to be the biggest year in the history of our country. And November 5th is going to be the single biggest day in the history of America. It's called Election Day. We're going to turn our country around, make America great again, greater than ever before. Thank you very much.
So he made that prediction about November, I'll try it again. November the 5th came true. And it is starting to turn around on them. We're going to see that as we go through these articles. Now, Tucker, let's go to Tucker for a moment. This is the Vigilant Fox on X, and Tucker's a little concerned about something. Let's listen in to what Tucker has to say.
I am very concerned that the people who have hated Trump for 8 years and run out of ways to destroy him, indicting him, well, first calling him a racist, spying on him with the federal intel agencies, sicking the FBI on him, trying to put him in prison, then trying to kill him at least twice, probably more, actually, but at least twice. And that those people, out of options, have decided the only way to stop Trump and the disclosure that a Trump administration will bring, once again, disclosure is what they fear, having their crimes revealed, that the only way to stop Trump is with a world war. And so I've been pretty fixated on that for months, probably more than a year. I've just thought a lot about it, and I know a lot of the people involved, and they're very, very, very focused on war. Permanent Washington doesn't care about domestic policy, in case your viewers, I'm sure, know this, but just want to restate it. They don't care about domestic policy. They don't care about fixing the country, closing the borders, ending the drug crisis, getting the cartels out of, the entire Southwest. They don't care about that. What they care about is exercising power abroad, killing people because it makes them feel like God, and making money. And that's where the money is, trillions of dollars. So they care about foreign policy. And I have been concerned and remain concerned that that group of people, which is basically everyone in D.C. in both parties, wants Trump to take the country to war, either against Russia or, far more likely, Iran. And I think what people outside, I don't know how to the degree to which this is understood, but I just will say it. A war with Iran is a world war. This is not 2002. Iran is now part of a coalition that includes the biggest economies in the world and the largest militaries in the world. So a war with Iran means a war in effect, or, by proxy, but still a war with Russia, China, Turkey, and a lot of the rest of the world. So that's a world war. It's not just as simple as we're going to take out their nuclear facilities. Okay, how are you going to do that? And how are you going to ensure that doesn't destroy the United States in the process? And of course, they don't care whether it destroys the United States. That's the actual answer. They don't care. And if they cared, they would pause and think about it. But anyway, I don't want to be bitter about it. But to me, it's really simple. Anybody who would even consider having a war with Russia or Iran should not be in any position of power at all in this administration or any other administration. It's super simple. And I think especially Ukraine is so obvious. Now, there is some debate on Iran, and I'm not endorsing Iran. I'm not a Shiite. But there's really no debate at this point about the debacle that has been Ukraine. Ukraine's not going to win. It's just completely destroyed Ukraine. It hasn't crushed Russia. It's really hurt the United States. So anyone who can't say that out loud should not have a job in the federal bureaucracy. So that's my litmus test. It's not about people or personality.
Right.
Of course, I know them all, as I know you do too, and I like a lot of them. I even like some of the guys I disagree with. One in particular I like very much. Nice guy, good guy. But it's a simple, practical test for whether or not you should wield power. Do you have the requisite wisdom to lead my country? And if you're still defending the war in Ukraine, you do not have the requisite wisdom to lead my country. That's my opinion.
So that was Tucker. And that's a concern that everybody's having right now. And we're going into the holiday season. We're going into Thanksgiving and Christmas, with a time when things are supposed to be kind of winding down for the end of the year, and people trying to have a joyous time and spend time with family and not be so concerned about world conditions and world politics, but actually enjoy the season. Hard to do when people are threatening world war, right? Um, Let me give you a little bit of encouragement if I can. If you understand the providence of God and the sovereignty of God and how He works, I have studied the scriptures intensely for at least, I'd have to say, 46, 47 years now. And God has a thing called restraining grace. And in His restraining grace, He has the ability, God does, in His sovereignty and His providence, to restrain things like nuclear war, to restrain the leaders and bureaucrats and kings and presidents of countries from pushing the button, if you will, and sending ICBMs into the atmosphere to rain down upon their enemies. God can restrain that. The heart of the king is in the hand of the Lord. I read that the other day. Let me go back and look and read that one again. Proverbs 21, the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord as the rivers of water. He turns it whithersoever He will. So if God does not want the world to be destroyed through thermonuclear war, it won't happen. And there's nothing that man can do to cause it to happen. Now, people who are constant warmongers, they just, that they thrive on war. Well, because there's a lot of money in war. There's a lot of money to be made in war. The big contractors that make all of the instruments of war get rich off of war. Get rich off of bloodshed. I mean, that's almost sickening to think of. But that's the reality of our world. We're living in a sinful world, folks. A sinful world. But there's other things in Scripture that are encouraging. The eyes of the Lord preserve knowledge, and He overthrows the words of the transgressor. All of the rhetoric put out by the globalists who want to push us into a World War III, because these people are Satanists and they don't care about humanity. They believe that humanity is the infestation of the world. God can overthrow them. And we're going to see as we go further into this video how God is doing that. God is pulling a Haman on these people that have such evil intents that Tucker is so concerned about. And we'll talk about what that is in a moment, but he's pulling a Haman on them. If you've ever read the book of Esther and the conflict between Haman and Mordecai, and if you haven't read it, go read it. take some time this week, get a Bible if you don't have one, or take the Bible that you have, turn to the book of Esther and read it. It's a short book. You can read it very quickly, but you really get a lesson on how God operates. And it's one of the strategies that God uses to take down evil. And so God is in control, folks. That's all I can say. His providence is in control. We don't need to sit around and wring our hands and worry about things, because God has not been defeated. I have some more. Be not envious against evil men, neither desire to be with them. For their heart studies destruction, and their lips talk of mischief. Through wisdom is a house built, and by understanding it is established. And by knowledge shall the chambers be filled with all precious and pleasant riches. A wise man is strong, yea, a man of knowledge increases strength. For by wise counsel thou shalt make thy war, and in multitude of counselors there is safety. The people who are pushing for war today do not have wise counselors. They are acting in foolishness. But they're not acting in a vacuum, a closed system. God is in the midst of it, because God is omnipotent. He's everywhere at the same time. He knows what they're doing. There's no secrets that they can keep from God. No secret codes, no secret plans that God doesn't already know about, didn't know about from eternity past. And they're not going to be able to enact any plan of theirs that is contrary to the ultimate plan of God. And that's why I'm not concerned. Because I trust God, because God is trustworthy. God has a track record of being trustworthy 100% of the time. So learning and understanding the providence of God helps you to understand that even when evil seems to reign upon this earth, it's not really reigning. It's a temporary reign that furthers the purpose and plan of God. We were all in despair. A lot of us were in despair 4 years ago when Trump lost the election. We knew what was coming. We knew that the economy was going to be in horrible condition. We knew that foreign policy was going to be a disaster. We knew that the world was going to come into a very dangerous situation. And of course, all of the shutdowns with COVID that occurred, the mandatory shots, the masks that everyone had to wear for a while, all of that stuff. The devastation of the economy, the devastation of business that had to shut down because they couldn't survive the shutdowns of COVID. I worked for a Christian school that shut down because it could not survive the shutdowns of COVID. I taught at the high school level. I taught logic, I taught rhetoric, I taught Christian apologetics, I taught systematic theology to high school students at a Christian school. And it didn't survive. It didn't survive COVID. All of this was just evil. But as we can see, if we did not go through that time of difficulty, that time of evil, the greater good that God had determined would not be occurring now. Those who intended evil would still be hidden within our government, entrenched within our bureaucracies, and never have been exposed. Now that they are exposed, they can be rooted out. Many people would have remained asleep and never would have woken up to the fact that their government has turned against them. But they woke up to that fact, and the result was November 5th. So, folks, trust in the providence of God, because He will never let you down if you trust in Him. All right, let's move on. There's some more and some examples of what I'm talking about. But before that, keep the folks in Western North Carolina in your prayers and your thoughts. I'm looking at X from Foxy Farmer. Swanoa, North Carolina has already seen snow. Just imagine living in tents and unheated shacks. And y'all, this is nothing. Just wait until January when the blizzards and ice hit. There'll be almost a 0% chance of survival for some folks. She says, I live in these winters. They are cruel. I grew up in the hills of Tennessee, folks, and I remember some winters coming through that were really heavy. I remember one year, my brother and I actually built an igloo. Went out and built an igloo that snowed so much. But in those, now I was in the hills of Tennessee, middle Tennessee. When you get into the mountains, it's even heavier. It's going to be a rough winter for these folks. My hope is that when Trump gets in office on January the 20th, that he will be able to begin to send immediate relief for these folks. Now, I'm waiting to see if this new governor that's coming in for North Carolina, I did not vote for him, but I will give him a chance to get it right if he's going to step up and help these folks. One of the things that's happening in North Carolina, or Western North Carolina, is that folks are caught in a catch-22. They want to have housing. They want, and people are trying to bring temporary housing in, but there are reports that they're being stopped by FEMA not to bring that housing in. So they can't have the housing. They can't get the permits for the housing. Children are being taken out of the home because it's considered, dangerous for the kids. And you have, it's a bad situation. My daughter left yesterday. She dropped her 2 dogs off at our house. She's heading out there now, and she's going to be helping to feed these folks with Thanksgiving dinner. She's been out there before to help relieve these folks. I mean, she was in a rescue. She was doing rescues. She was, providing protection and things like that out there earlier, just right after the hurricane hit. I would love to go out and help, but I would be a liability. And this is something you have to understand, folks. You have to know when you're a liability or when you're an asset. Because of the operation I just had, the health conditions I'm recovering from, me trying to go out there, I would just become a liability and a hindrance, and I don't want to do that. I want the folks that are capable to go out there and help these folks. I want them to be able to do their job without someone like me becoming an anchor on them. So I support them from here. But keep the folks in Western North Carolina in your hearts and your thoughts and your prayers. And let's include East Tennessee in that. Let's include Western Virginia. Uh, and of course, anyone in Georgia or Florida that's still having issues from Hurricane Helene, then let's keep them in mind. Moving right along. Now this is Eric Trump that's coming up. This is Mario Nawful on X. Eric Trump, we will make China and cartels pay for poisoning America. He's talking about the drug crisis, the fentanyl crisis. And let's just listen into what he has to say.
This series of caravans, and apparently there will be another one building, we understand tonight, coming to the United States. Mexico knows they're coming and is not doing anything to stop it. Tariffs the answer?
Absolutely. Laura, I've talked about fentanyl every single day of the campaign trail. It's something that affects me great. I have 4 friends who have lost children based on fentanyl. I took my son and my daughter to the football game yesterday, the Dolphins game, and they were sitting on my lap, and the guy next to me turns around, looking at my son, and said, a couple months ago, I lost my son. They killed him. They killed him with fentanyl. I lost my little boy. Cherish every single moment that you have. And he's literally looking at my son, sitting on my lap at his first NFL football game. And it broke my heart. When my father sent out that tweet, you want to allow drugs to come through our southern border? We're going to tariff you. You want to allow them to come through Canada? We're going to tariff you. China, if you're going to allow this stuff to get sold in our country, largely produced in China, we're going to add another 10% to your share. We are going to cost your countries, your economies. We're going to cost your businesses billions, hundreds of billions of dollars. If you think you're going to poison Americans, it's not going to happen. You're not going to destroy our youth. You're not going to destroy our society. You're not going to destroy our families. You're not going to do it. It's going to cost you. I'm going to put an end to it. Laura, when my father sent that 20 minutes ago, I literally cheered out loud. There's nothing more twisted and perverse than what the cartels have done, what China has done. And you know what? The Biden and Harris have literally been absent. They don't even talk about it. They haven't even talked about the fentanyl crisis that is killing so many people. Laura's 320,000 people, 320,000 kids died in the last year based on...
Yeah, but this was their strategy to flood the country.
You have police departments...
with new people. I mean,
Laura, you have police departments in this country that are... You have police departments in this country that are running out of Narcan. That's how bad the problem is, right? And they can't keep it in stock. People are dying by the thousands. And this is exactly why the American people voted for Donald Trump. They want a guy who will take this kind of action. They want a guy who will literally be very transparent. Before he's even in office, he's calling these countries out. I'm telling you, he's going to stop the problem. And this is exactly how you use tariffs. This is exactly how you use it.
I have a feeling Mexico will find a way to stop those migrant caravans coming across the border.
Yeah. Okay. Mexico would find a way. Let me get around with it for that. Mexico will find a way. No, Mexico's hand has to be forced before they will do anything. Good. Look, we know that the plan is to go after these drug cartels and the human trafficking. And folks, this is not going to be just a quick, we'll just go in and take them out real fast and okay, let's just take a vacation the rest of the year. That's not how it's going to work. This is going to be a protracted fight, a protracted battle against these cartels. But I believe that we can have ultimate victory over them. I do. We have the ability and the resources. All right. Let's, James O'Keefe. He has one out of, it's kind of long, but I'll play a little portion of it for you, of an NIH official who's basically saying that all this stuff about that was going on during the pandemic, where they were saying 6 feet, keep 6 feet apart, wear your mask, the shots. He was saying it's all bogus. Let's give a quick listen in.
What do you think about the NIH now that you were working there?
Probably shouldn't be like saying this out loud. They might have funded a lab in Wuhan, China, to like make, and Pfizer and Moderna are just getting a bunch of money from all these vaccine mandates.
Roger Cholan is with the National Institute of Health.
For other vaccines, like measles or whatever, you have to go through several rounds of approval, but these were accelerated through the approval.
Do you think that those, like the mRNA stuff is safe? It's like really affecting people with the myocarditis stuff?
I think we're all going to learn when it's too late.
I think that's important. The lack of effectiveness of the vaccine product.
Like the sick.
Okay, that was Dr. Robert Malone that you were just hearing, where he was saying that. Let me back it up and let you listen to him again real quick. This is Dr. Robert Malone.
Learn when it's too late.
I think that's important. The lack of effectiveness of the vaccine product.
Like the 6-foot rule. Remember that? Like.
Now, if you don't remember, Dr. Robert Malone was the one who supposedly created or invented mRNA, which was in the shots. So now this official, Roger Cholan, Cholan, I think it's CH Cholan. He's going to talk about the 6-foot rule and all of that. Listen in real quick.
Remember that, like, that wasn't like based on any real evidence that did anything. It was completely made up.
What do you think?
Completely made up. Let me back that up for you.
Roger.
I'll back that up for you real quick. Listen to him again.
Of the vaccine product.
Like the 6-foot rule. Remember that? Like, that wasn't like based on any real evidence that did anything. It was completely made up.
What do you think?
Roger then brings up politics, talks about which political party he prefers and what would happen to him and NIH under an incoming Trump administration.
I think it would be worse for the NIH. I think it would be better for a Democrat to be in office. We sometimes fly under the radar of like the really street guys. I don't think it would.
So basically saying that, if Trump came in, a lot of people would be fired. And NIH would be gutted, basically, was his belief. So you can see, even he is saying what was, 2-3 years ago considered to be conspiracy theories. It's all coming out, folks. The truth is coming out. You have conspiracy theorists, and then you have truth deniers. And there are many truth deniers out there. So just some food for thought there. Now, revivals are occurring all over the place. I mean, my goodness, we have a pandemic of revivals just breaking out everywhere. This one is God moving in revival at Ole Miss University. 6,600 students packed out the Sandy and John Black Pavilion October the 10th to worship, pray, and hear the gospel. And he's posted things from prisons, a women's prison and a men's prison, where all of these prisoners are singing and giving praise to Christ. So that's some good news for you to chew on during this holiday season. Wide Awake Media put this out. This is German MEP Member of Parliament, Christine Anderson. Let's listen to what she has to say.
What would you say to the people that say, okay, you're talking about freedom. I have my freedom. I have a right to vote. I have the right to buy whatever I want. Why should they be concerned?
Well, just look at, what are your freedoms worth? Just look at the last 3 years, There was a point in time, at least in Germany, that were curfews imposed. So you were not allowed to leave your house after 9 p.m. And if it was even for taking a walk all by yourself in a forest. I mean, this is ridiculous. I'm not allowed to leave my house now, for some ridiculous notion there is this deadly virus going on. No, this massive infringement on fundamental rights. That was actually like a test balloon. They were trying to see how far they could go infringement when it comes to infringement on fundamental rights, and they also wanted to see what they had to do to get people to just comply.
Yeah. So, but that's behind us. So, what's in the future? What's next?
Well, no, it's not behind us. I beg to differ. This pandemic is not over until every single politician, every single elected representative, and every single one responsible for these draconian restrictions that have been imposed on the people has been held accountable. And this will not be over until every single scientist, every single doctor, every single healthcare worker has been exonerated and rehabilitated from having pulled their license and all of that. This will be over when every single one of these despicable people have been held accountable, possibly even has stood trial in a court of law.
Yeah. The politicians are coming out and they're openly saying this stuff now, folks. That the whole thing was a farce. It was a scam. I'm in the book of Esther. And trying to find where Haman got his. Okay, chapter 7. So Haman built gallows to hang Mordecai because Haman didn't like Mordecai. Mordecai wouldn't bow down and worship Haman, which was what Haman really wanted. Mordecai worshiped the God of creation, the God of heaven. And so Haman had it out for Mordecai, and he built gallows and was going to hang Mordecai on those gallows. To make a long story short, and it was revealed to the king that Haman was going to do this, and also decreed that all the Jews be killed in the land. And it was a big empire that covered numerous nations. And so this is what the Bible has to say about what God did to Haman. And the king, arising from the banquet, because they had a banquet, Esther had a banquet, invited Haman in to be with the king, and then revealed to the king this evil that Haman was doing. So the king learns about this at this banquet, and here's his response. And the king, arising from the banquet of wine in his wrath, went into the palace garden, and Haman stood up to make request for his life to Esther, the queen, for he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king. Now, there are bureaucrats that have done evil things in our government against the American people. And now that Trump won election, they're seeing that Trump has certain intentions toward them. Do you see the parallel? Then the king returned out of the palace garden into the place of the banquet of wine, and Haman was fallen upon the bed whereon Esther was. Then said the king, will he force the queen also before me in my house? As the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. And Harbonah, one of the chamberlains, said before the king, Behold also the gallows 50 cubits high, the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who had spoken good of the king stands in the house of Haman. Then the king said, Hang him thereon. So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then was the king's wrath pacified. The evil that they intended for us in our own government, God has flipped it around on them. And he's pulled a Haman on them. And the evil that they have intended for us has done a U-turn and is coming straight for them. Take some wisdom from that, folks, in your own life. Don't intend evil upon people so quickly. Consider your wrath. Consider your anger. Consider your intents of your heart. Because God can flip it around on you real fast. Just think about that. Out of Proverbs. A just man falls 7 times and rises up again, but the wicked shall fall into mischief. Rejoice not when your enemy falls, and let not your heart be glad when he stumbles, lest the Lord see it, and it displease him, and he turn away his wrath from him. So that's why you don't see me all giddy and playing all of the woke, panic reactions that a lot of people are doing on social media. That's the reason. Have mercy upon these folks. But the law has to be followed. Justice does have to be done. Haman might have to hang on the gallows that he made for Mordecai. But don't rejoice in that. Be humbled before God in that and say, I could have gone in the same direction as Haman and received the same judgment, but for the grace of God. And also, the fact that this evil occurred in the first place should be something we should be sad about. But find our joy and our comfort in the fact that God has a handle on it. He's not going to allow it to get out of control. His restraining grace is going to stop a thermonuclear war. His restraining grace will stop a world war that would be total devastation to the earth. His restraining grace stops the Great Awakening plan that was put out by Klaus Schwab. And I've read all the materials. Ultimately, God determines our future. I know that we have free will, but our free will does not overrule the will of God. We are not autonomous over God. And this is the problem with a lot of the free will talk that comes out of Christianity today, is that a lot of the free will talk that comes out of Christianity today is a free will that overrules God. That is something that the church needs to draw back from and come to understand and realize our free will is not superior and triumphant and does not rule over God's ultimate will. It does not rule over God's sovereignty, and it does not rule over his providence. God's providence and sovereignty and his will rules over our will. It's flip it around. It's the other way around. We bow to him. He doesn't bow to us. Please understand that, Christian. All right, let's move on. This is Senator Marsha Blackburn. Facebook is trying to silence me, she says, and stop me from speaking out about Jeffrey Epstein's horrific sex trafficking ring. Now, she's a member of Congress, and she's trying to put out to her constituents information that they're finding in their investigations in Congress. And she's saying, well, this needs to go out to the public. What we have discovered in our investigations, our committee investigations and so forth, they don't have the ability to go out and arrest anyone. They don't have law enforcement powers, but they do have the ability to say, oh, wow, we discovered this. Let's put it out to the public so they know what's going on as well. Well, she's doing her job. But Facebook says, you can't do that. We're going to censor you. Meta, Big Tech, and the media have been trying to cover up his alleged abuses for years, and they'll even go as far as censoring United States senators. I need to hit the show more. Who want to bring transparency to the American people. Exactly. Now, there's some interesting comments underneath. Insurrection Barbie says it's insane that Facebook would censor a sitting member of Congress from speaking to her constituents. That's just not normal. Lisa Loves Shells says, we forget sometimes just what Elon has done for our nation. X is the only place left for freedom of speech. Brick Suit says, release the list. K Pasa says, they're talking about the CEO of Facebook. He seriously needs to be prosecuted. He's already admitted to wrongdoing, and he still continues to do it. So you can see the comments from the people are quite negative toward Zuckerberg. So anyway, there's a lot of them. Here's a Mega Kitty. Facebook and Zuckerberg's even blocking a sitting U.S. senator. Cover up much for pedos Zuck. So you can see they are the people are fed up. They're tired of all of this nonsense. And folks, God is reversing it. God is reversing it. Now, this is a warning. Wow, that's an hour and 50 minutes. I'm not going to torture you guys with an hour and 50 minutes. General Flynn was on the Alex Jones show, and he warns the desperate deep state is willing to start a nuclear war to stay in power. And he's accurate on that. Do I have the books? I saw it just the other day. Bear with me for just a moment, folks. I'll keep talking. I put a new table right there, and it's really helpful. As you can see, I have a huge bookshelf here with a lot of books. I bet you I have 500 books. I love books. You never have to charge them. You never have to plug them in. If the power ever goes out, I can get candlelight and continue to read. But this is COVID-19, The Great Reset, written by Klaus Schwab and Thierry Malloret. As you can see, I've got notes in here and highlights. I read this a while back, along with other books like it. And based upon my study of what the globalists wrote themselves, I believe that General Flynn is actually correct on what he was saying. They would destroy the planet and go into their bunkers where they probably have food for the next 100, 200 years worth of food, or seeds where they could, in the soil and everything, where they could sustain themselves and just be that selfish and live themselves while the rest of the world is exterminated. I mean, this is their thinking. I've read their materials. I've studied it. Now let me read you the rest of this. Like I said, though, don't forget about God's restraining grace. They thought they could do this in their satanic mind, in their twisted thinking. They thought they could do this. They underestimated God's restraining grace. The former head of the Defense Intelligence Agency also issued an emergency warning to Trump that the deep state will try to kill him before he takes office. Flynn appealed directly to the 47th president and laid out a Thanksgiving-themed message of global peace that he believes Trump should deliver that will stop the globalist plan for World War III dead in its tracks. The future of life on Earth depends on you watching, sharing this message. No, I'm sorry. I don't care for that kind of marketing. No, the future of life on Earth depends on God. It's simple. Depends on God. God's grace will keep us going. Now let me back this up. And
the most important thing right now is communications. Open, honest, and brutally honest communications between leaders. And the leader that we have just elected is President Donald J. Trump. President-elect Donald J. Trump, going to be the 47th president of the United States of America, God willing. And he has got to be able to open up communications lines right now, because Joe Biden, we've already seen that he's not going to do it. Harris, she's on vacation in wherever, and she's incapable of doing it. I mean, I do believe that.
General, what about public statements from Trump? Because
I think they're public. So that's a great lead for me, because one of the things that I have provided, and I think that in President Trump's case, because we're going into, I call it this sort of season of Thanksgiving. Okay, Thanksgiving is a national. It's only celebrated here in the United States of America. Okay,
a perfect time to call for world peace.
An incredible moment in this historic period of time, with a historic victory, a historic person in the presence of Donald J. Trump. The times that we face, we are in this season of Thanksgiving.
God not only can turn the heart of the king, he determines the king. God determined that Biden was going to be president for the previous 4 years that we just went through. God determined that. Because God had a plan that none of us could understand. But God was in control of it. I mean, how easily could the world have blown up during the Biden administration? But God's restraining grace stopped it from happening, because God had a plan. And for those of you who are never Trumpers, guess what? God determined that Trump was going to be president the next 4 years. For the Christians who say, I could never vote for Trump because, he doesn't meet my pharisaical standards. Well, what are you going to do now? God determined that Trump is running the country for the next 4 years. And he's got a Congress that's sympathetic toward him. God's wisdom is above our wisdom. His understanding above ours. He's so far above us, and yet we think we can figure things out. We just need to humble ourselves before God and watch Him do His great work. All right. So this is Matt Van Swol. He says, this is on X, he says FEMA is actively blocking volunteers from delivering RVs, tiny homes, and other housing units to people living in tents in western North Carolina because they are in a flood zone. The Fox News host can't even believe it. The truth is so much more horrifying than any conspiracy theory. Now, I'll play that for you in just a moment. But let me say this. The reason behind this, in my humble opinion, is that it's a land grab. You create the perfect condition to where these folks can't, if they're saying it's a flood zone, then that means they can't live there if they're making a rule against living in a flood zone. If they're saying you can't have a home there, you can't have temporary housing there, you can't have your children there, we'll take your children away. What are they saying? They're saying, get out. It's a flood zone. Get out. We're not allowing you to live here. We're going to take the land. The government says we're taking the land. For what? If it's a flood zone, government, why do you need it? Those mountains are rich in lithium and other precious minerals. What is lithium used for? Well, the cell phone that I'm recording this on uses lithium in its battery. This laptop that I'm using to give you this information uses lithium. Follow the money, as they said in Watergate. Let's listen to this for just a moment.
Is that FEMA won't let you put a trailer on a piece of ground that is considered flood prone. Well, all these people are out of their houses because they got flooded, right?
Yeah, yes, sir. That's correct. So again, we started running into this a couple of weeks ago, and we started making phone calls and calling everybody, knocking on representatives' doors and trying to get some answers of why these places can't have tiny homes or FEMA trailers, we even got a text back from our Speaker of the House that said, they can apply for grants. These people are so far out of touch with what's going on. Senator Ted Budd, we did get in touch with him. And within 24 hours, he got something on the president's desk addressing this very topic. So here's what we got. The floodplain has, this is a 1,000-year flood. So the topographical map shows, Ezra maps show the floodplain lines. Well, there is rules in place. I spoke with the state fire marshal an hour ago to get some clarity. There's rules in place that say that you can't put these trailers on floodplain property. Well, everything up there is now considered floodplain. And what a lot of people don't understand is the rivers that were 100 foot wide, now they're 600 foot wide in some places. So people not only lost their homes, but they lost the land that their homes were on. It's down to bedrock. So it expands out the area to which you can't put these trailers. So that's why, the route that we have chosen to go, these small temporary trailers, they can be moved around. It's not the best and it's not permanent, but yeah, I mean, if somebody could, somebody in the government could say, hey, we're going to lift these temporary restrictions right now and let this be, man, it could get a lot of people out of the cold right now instantly.
Yeah, because a lot of those people are living in tents, right?
It is heartbreaking. We delivered a tent to a lady, me and my co-founder, Eric Robinson, delivered a tent 2 weeks ago. Delivered a camper to a lady 2 weeks ago. Her and her daughters were living in a tent, and she literally was fending off a bear attack the night before. because they had food in their tent. This is no joke, man. This is
I'm gonna comment on the bear thing.
somebody needs to. People are in the government are so out of touch with what's going on up there. If they would just put their mud boots on and go up there and walk around, if it was their mother and daughter, they would have a change of heart.
One of the stories that I
Okay, so yeah, that's a real danger. The bears are. I like I said, I grew up in Tennessee. I hiked a portion of the Pacific Crest Trail and John Muir Trail when I was out in California. And of course, they had grizzlies out there, grizzly bears, and we had to take certain precautions during a 5-day hike. We did a 3-day hike and then a 5-day hike. And you're out in the wilderness where we didn't even get phone. There was no cell phone reception. The only way to get out to anyone was by satellite phone. Some of the hikers had satellite phone. We had to call in, or someone with satellite phone called in a helicopter to come rescue a girl while we were out there who had fallen sick from altitude sickness. But without that satellite phone, she would have been in big trouble. But anyway, we had to take precautions concerning the grizzlies because it's you're in wilderness. In these mountain areas in West North Carolina, East Tennessee, there's a lot of black bears up in there, and a lot of wildlife, and it is dangerous. It really is. And so these are some things that people don't consider and think about. Can you see why Trump wants to get rid of some of these regulations and get rid of some of these rules, these bureaucratic rules and so forth that's so entrenched in our government? They hinder sometimes more than they help.
I've heard is that volunteers such as yourself were shuttling supplies up to the hardest hit areas up there around Asheville and beyond, and that FEMA was actually telling them, leave those supplies, give them to us. We're FEMA, and you can't do this anymore. Is that true?
So I can only speak on one incident that we had with one of our pilots in a helicopter. It was in the Pensacola area. We had one of our pilots had flown a mission up there and started unloading supplies and relief supplies. Went up to FEMA had just came in the day before. I had flown in there the day before that. FEMA had started setting up. The following day is when this pilot went in. And to my understanding, when they were the minute they started unloading, FEMA started seizing all of those assets. Well, we decided that, hey, that was the last time we were going to fly supply missions into that LZ. If they needed them or they had them, we had direct contact with EOC. They could have got them, but we wasn't playing that game.
Yeah, some help from the government, huh? Well,
January 20th, when Trump takes office, FEMA, get ready. The shenanigans and the silly games that you're playing now will end. And either you're going to get on board with actually going out and actually helping those folks, or you're going to be eliminated. It's your choice. Many of your people will be fired. Many of your people will be removed and go into the unemployment line if you don't get off your duff and start doing the right thing. It's really that simple. So relief is coming, and either you can get on board with it and stop hindering relief, or you can go work at Starbucks being a barista. It's up to you. All right, so let's let him finish up.
You're a former Marine, right, Matt?
I still am a Marine, yes, sir.
I know. Once a Marine, always a Marine. It's always a tricky thing to handle. But you're doing great work up there, and I'm sure the people of North Carolina appreciate what you're doing. And the fact that you've got two senators, Senator Tillis and Senator Budd, now fighting for you because of what you've done, that means a lot.
Yeah, I appreciate Operation Hilo, our volunteer pilots, our volunteers. I just can't say enough about the whole community coming together, wanting to help. It is remarkable day to day. I'm just blessed every day to wake up and be a part of this, and hopefully provide a little bit of shelter and hope for these people.
Yeah. Well, again, Thanksgiving is coming up, and we hope Americans remember how blessed they are, and maybe they can help some of your people out. Matt McSwain, thank you.
I'm thankful for my oldest daughter, who's actually going to be helping out there in those flood-rendered areas and hurricane-devastated areas, helping out with Thanksgiving up there. And God bless her. I appreciate what she's doing. This, I'll stop here in just a little bit, but this from Adam Salazar on X. Breaking Musk X, hard to say that so that people don't understand it. X, started by, bought by Musk. Twitter bought by Musk, now titled X, asked court to block sale of Alex Jones and InfoWars X accounts. So because Alex Jones is on X, and therefore it involves X, that means that Musk is getting involved. Elon Musk is getting involved in it and saying, hey, this involves me now too, because he's on X, and I'm going to fight for my people who are on X. And so he's fighting for Alex Jones, and that's good news. All right. There's a thing I put out on chemtrails and Blue Beam, conspiracy theory. Hopefully we'll get a handle on those chemtrails that are happening. Contrails dissipate quickly. Chemtrails stay in the sky, and that's the clouds that you see forming. And they've been seeding clouds since I was a kid. There's cloud seeding. There's stuff that gets sprayed in the air all the time. And we don't know what that stuff is. I mean, there's some documentaries that have come out talking about what some of it is, but I mean, it's just there's a lot that we need to clean up in this country, and we've got some time now, 4 years, to get work on it. BRICS News. This was put out November 25th, just in. Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu agreed to a ceasefire agreement with Hezbollah. Now, I know that the International Court put out an arrest warrant for Netanyahu. I have no skin in that game. I could care less about that. Be honest with you. I'm not a big, a cheerleader for Netanyahu. I have one of his books back here that he wrote. I do study what they write. I do look at what they say, but he's the same prime minister. At one time I supported him. I thought, oh, he's really conservative. I like him. But now I'm looking back on that and going, well, there's some things I didn't know and understand about him. He recently mocked Christianity and our faith in Christ. He once said, oh yeah, Jesus, I heard of him. I think he lived here like a couple thousand years ago. And that's all he had to say about Jesus. Had no regard for him at all. He's basically an atheist, folks. And so I know that people say, well, Israel has a right to self-defense. I agree with that. But let me close with this. There's a difference between self-defense and crossing the line. When I was in law enforcement, we had a line between self-defense and becoming the aggressor. Stopping the threat is self-defense. But if you go beyond stopping the threat and become the aggressor, and you're now doing a beat down, even if you were the one that was initially attacked, you're no longer in self-defense. You are now in criminal activity. And I believe that this is exactly what Israel has done. They went beyond self-defense and went into war crimes and criminal activity. And Netanyahu was in charge of that. And so there has to be moderation when you're defending a nation. How many times has our own country been guilty of this? We need to learn the difference between defending our nation and becoming the aggressor that's aggressing against another people, their culture, their nation. And so that's something to consider and think about. So that's why the International Court did what they did, because they recognized that. And I get all these emails on my phone, or text, on my phone saying, oh, Netanyahu could be arrested. We need help, send help. Send $45 to help out. They use this marketing ploy to get money out of you. And I just shrugged my shoulders going, oh, okay, well, they must have had a reason for what they did. So I don't buy into all of that fear marketing concept. Let's see, I got down here a couple books, and then we will end on this. These came out a while back. Okay, that's a different one. So a couple of them you might want to consider. This one's called Open Your Mind to Change, a guidebook to the Great Awakening by Martin Geddes, right here. I have the Great Reset written by Alex Jones right back here. And I have this one, United States of Fear, How America Fell Victim to a Mass Delusional Psychosis by Mark McDonald, MD. Right there. That is an outstanding book, folks. Right there. And then, of course, I never, ever promote my own book. So let me do that real quick, and then we'll close out the video. I keep it in a special place here. This one is called, if you ever want to go and purchase this book, it's still available. Right here. The Young Person's Guide to Wisdom. A biblical guide to the wisdom of God revealed in Scripture by Jeff Claiborne. Forward is by Dr. PhD David Campbell. And so if you want to learn more about wisdom that is not taught in the universities and colleges, this is a book that'll guide you through it. Well, thanks, folks, for watching the C-Files again. I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday if I'm not able to get back on here tomorrow. And God bless you all. We'll see you between Thanksgiving and Christmas, if we're not able to come on tomorrow, the day before Thanksgiving. God bless. And thanks for watching the C-Files.